My biggest fear, I guess, is losing my memory. Because memory is what we are, you know, and I think that your very soul and your very reason to be alive is tied up in memory.
Why does Aftersun feel the way it does? And I'm not necessarily talking about the melancholic summer feeling it creates or the way it grabs you by the throat, although I will talk about that later. No, to me it's incredibly fascinating the way it moves and how it uses that kind of movement to further the emotional connection we have towards Calum and Sophie.
She's pretty.
Because Aftersun moves like a wave.
She's the pretty one from Glasgow, she's stuck in my head.
Oh my god, Dad, stop!
Okay.
It takes your personal experiences and brings back memories that aren't yours, like ebb and flow. In fact, most of the key moments in the movie center around movement. You can feel it in its narrative, see it in the camera movement, and experience it through the actors.
I'm still copying you though.
I know.
Movement is everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different points of view happening in the film, you know, the way that the DV kind of anchors an almost like factual record of things that happened objectively on this holiday. And then you have, you know, these like really direct point of view experiences that young Sophie has on the holiday, and then you have this overarching point of view of adult Sophie looking back.
Three narratives that create a continuous flow of movement, creating a gentle rhythm, motion. Like how the camera glides from the past to the present to the imaginary.
And we tried different things, but ultimately that image of him leaving was so strong.
There is so much emotional depth going on in this moment because the three narratives are combined into one shot. But not only that, it's the way he drops his arm. That defeated look on his face, his body tired of, well, everything. The visual language creates such an extensive texture, as well as the sound design and the music.
I love you.
The noisy airport.
Bye.
The silence. The faint yet breathing city, and all of a sudden, a baby. It's that one element, that one perfectly and tenderly placed sound that gives me a lump in my throat.
Hey, are you okay?
The way it is entwined with the soundtrack that starts playing, calmly swelling while the movie reaches its final climax. Like waves on a beach, coming and going. But I don't want him to go.
See if you let it rest on an object for a wee while it gets the lighting right. That's quite clever.
Why does it feel so real?
I was more interested in you feeling Sophie's longing and her desire to cross time and to reach back.
Yeah, being amazing.
Being aware of the implications, a second viewing gives you a completely different scope of what happens. It actually reinforces the themes, as I'm now looking for clues related to Calum's state of mind. Figuring out what has happened, trying to make sense of his behavior. And then it struck me, I have become Sophie. I'm reliving memories that aren't mine.
The film allows for different routes to the same conclusion. And I think that's the way in which people are able to bring their own experiences to it as well.
For some viewers, Aftersun brings back actual memories, anchored moments from their life that contain sensory experiences and bodily sensations, feelings, smells, sounds. These are not just abstract mental constructs, but are intertwined with our physicality, our being. They are us. At the same time, movement involves the body, encompassing gestures, postures, and the physical engagement with the world.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Both memories and movement are part of our embodied experience, shaping our understanding and relationship with ourselves and the world around us. Memories are movement. I don't know if that's an explanation for how the camera in Aftersun moves the way it does, but there are certain moments that reinforce the dreamy, memory-like aesthetic of the movie simply through motion. Straightforward techniques like a pan, a tracking shot, or a pull-out. It often resembles the style of someone like Lynn Ramsey. creating a gentle flow, a poetic gaze that wanders into the mind of the characters, making the viewer filling in the things that are left unsaid or undone. The what and the how are implied through these detail shots, adding both to the mystery but also the subtle feeling of understanding. That's why it was possible to leave out the dialogue. The movement tells the story. Swaying rhythmically back and forth, his intentions unclear, for there is a barrier between us and him, one we will never break. These metaphorical moments that are shown feel complete because they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. To me, it explains why Calum is either always in motion or subject to camera movement when we see him alone. After all, these are the moments where adult Sophie is trying to guess what he was going through.
Oh my god, he's doing some real slow motion ninja moves. Why is he so weird sometimes?
As the emotions intensify, Calum subdues them.
We're here to have a good time, eh?
Because he is still a father and he wants to give his daughter everything she needs.
You're trying to get me into trouble.
His body becomes this abstract map of frustration and regulation, an inner darkness that will haunt the sunny vacation resort.
He's an excellent father, which I think was hugely important to the film and what drew me to it. And he's kind of battling his own demons throughout the course of the film.
So when Calum moves, it's either done to show control and perseverance. He will not let the implied depression or anxiety take hold of him. The other side of the spectrum is Calum letting go, being carefree and living in the moment.
Oh my god, what even is that?
These are my moves.
That is if we read those moments at face value, because like I said, these scenes are more or less a recollection of Sophie's memories. So is it Sophie imagining what Calum was doing when she was somewhere else? Or is this an expression of his troubled mind?
There are no answers. She has no answers. The questions and how do you play with this idea that some of what you're seeing of him alone is maybe, in some sense, her imagining.
We only see glimpses of Calum, and those gaps make us guess, creating an interesting engine of the story. There's always this looming feeling of tension, resulting in the question, what if? Or will he? The answer is to move one final time.
I never ever that.
Okay, I'm dancing without you. I told you, I love to dance.
Did he know? Was he aware that this was a goodbye? It is the closure we're looking for but aren't getting. So we watch and think and try to imagine how hard it must have been. And all of a sudden he's right there in front of us, in his most vulnerable. The sound of the grandchild he will never meet echoes through the long, clinical and empty hallway. And I know what will happen, but I don't want it to. He knows it's time for him to leave, going to the place where he and his daughter, where she and her father can finally be together. There's nothing I can do. Nothing I can change. But as he starts to walk and the door opens, I realize something. Sometimes saying goodbye is the most beautiful thing you can do in order to keep someone's memory alive.